It is estimated that over 2.6 billion of the world's population does not have toilet facilities, and even worse, that those with toilets do not always wash their hands after such a visit. At only 34%, the toilet coverage in Homa Bay is seen as one of the lowest in the country, therefore calling for major interventions. Over 2.6 billion people worldwide do not have proper toilet facilities. This results in about 1.8 million people a year dying of diseases like diarrhea, typhoid and cholera, especially children under the age of 5. Kilifi County is one of the areas plagued by poor sanitation. One major reason for this has been certain cultural beliefs by the people.
As you can see, it's community-led. And this is the no subsidy strategy, where we are not coming up to put up any latrine for anyone. But it's actually passing the message across, triggering people to see the reason why they should actually have a latrine, and making the connection between the sanitation practices that they have in the community and the health, or their own health within that particular community.
Infant mortality rates in Kilifi are high, and children under the age of 5 are particularly vulnerable. Poor sanitation is a major cause, with infants succumbing to diseases like diarrhea. CLTS was launched in Kilifi in 2007. Since then, there has been a marked increase in the construction and use of latrines by the local community. In one part of Kilifi, Vitengeni sublocation, there were 600 homesteads which had no toilets. Evidently, village health facilitators have been able to trigger change in vast areas which would have been unreachable by government workers on their own. There has been increased construction of latrines by the local community. There are currently over 200 open defecation-free or ODF villages in the area, with an increase of latrines from 300 in the year 2007 to 4,550 in the year 2009. The most important tool of the CLTS strategy is the trigger process. This is because it enables community members themselves to appreciate the problem with open defecation and hence forces them to determine a course of action. Usually, a meeting is called by facilitators who often comprise of natural leaders from a different village which has been already successfully triggered. The Rapid Results Initiative, conducted in 2008, identified the acute challenge to overall development of the area as a result of illnesses and deaths resulting from inadequate sanitation. As part of the activities to mark the World Toilet Day, marked every year on November 19th, Plan International, one of the partners working with the community, has advocated for community-led total sanitation. This strategy was first tried in Bangladesh in 1999. The strategy aims to address the community's sanitation challenges by first triggering awareness among them that they are unknowingly ingesting their own human waste. Many are the challenges. They include resistance based on past cultural practices, like the sharing of toilet facilities by close family members, which many people still regard as a taboo.
Of course, that comprehensive piece there was done by my director here, Ben Gui, and he talks about the World Toilet Day that is normally marked every 19th day of November every year. That is 19th day of November. And with us in the studio is the Plan Country Director, that is Carol Sharma. I'm hoping I got the name right.
You did.
And Carol, this year's celebrations are being held in Kitui, so the reports indicate.
That's right. Every year there will be a national celebration, and that is where the government is hosting the national celebrations. But there's many celebrations going on all around the country to talk about toilets, which is something not usually done. It's not something that we would usually talk about, and to shine the spotlight on what is going on in terms of the lack of access to sanitation.
Lack of access to sanitation. And the question will be, why take the national celebrations to Kitui and say not Nairobi?
Well, I think this is a countrywide and a worldwide problem. So you can take the celebrations anywhere to mark the day, because what really the celebration is all about is actually getting the message out, whatever county, whatever country you're in. And the fact of the matter is that diarrheal diseases caused to a large extent from open defecation and lack of access to improved sanitation is a major cause of diarrheal disease. And this is one of the second largest killers of children under 5 globally. And each year in Kenya, there's over 17,000 children under 5 dying of diarrheal diseases.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about diarrhea disease and matter sanitation. Such celebrations were held last year on such a day. And today we're also holding these particular celebrations. Is there anything to show for in terms of achievements?
Yes, I think it is. There is a lot, and I think from the clip you saw that Plan International, but hundreds of other groups around the country, including the government, where it is a national strategy to have open defecation-free Kenya by around 2017. Whether that actually makes the mark by 2017 or not, there are more and more communities building their own latrines, their sanitation services, washing their hands, understanding hygiene, and so forth. Child diseases are going down. So we're seeing an increase. For instance, just today in Machakos alone, the government, with Plan's assistance, we've been working together with the communities, are going to declare 14 villages open defecation free for the first time. So yes, each group, each intervention in a way is actually helping to reduce the number of people openly defecating. And this is so vital. So it doesn't change overnight. It's not going to be something that you can say, yes, we've achieved in 1 or 2 years. But definitely progress is occurring. Definitely people now are building their own latrines. Quite simple. You don't need a lot of money. And then the second phase, thinking and considering about going up the sanitation ladder, which is to ensure improved latrine access.
In your opinion, because when you talk about the questions of latrine, for example, that should be a key thing that every family should be having in this country. What hinders, apart from, say, finances, what has been the key impediment, say, to families embracing the question of we need to build latrines, these are on sanitation, and then move forward?
I think there's quite a few different challenges. You will find that in some cultures as well, people don't want to go into a small room, or they don't, which is a latrine usually, and they don't want to actually share a latrine in terms of a father going to the same room to defecate as their daughter-in-law or their daughter or something like that. So you do in some areas have those sorts of barriers. You do of course have poverty and the lack of access. But again, that's where we come in, and that's where the community-led total sanitation approach comes in, which is a very simple structure that you first need to ensure that you've got a closed-off space, so you can't have animals or flies coming in, and a hole. So, you know, people have been used to going out, walking out of the village. Other priorities have taken place. And I think that the understanding that actually that you're eating your own feces and that whole cycle, that oral fecal route, is not really hasn't been really well understood, because it hasn't been spoken about enough publicly. It's a private matter. So I think once people do understand that in fact they are contaminating themselves, their children are dying because of fecal diseases and so forth, people really start to be sort of disgusted in a way, and it motivates them, and they're afraid, and it's the first motivator to actually say, we can club together as a community, and we can go out and we'll give ourselves 2 months or something, pick a time frame, and to start cordoning off some areas and building simple latrines. And then they start to actually understand that there are local products and cheap products, and they can get access sometimes to loans or something like that to be able to build more solid structures.
Does Plan International help them access some of these facilities? When you talk about some of them, you say they're cheap products, but maybe for the families, they may look at them as expensive.
Well, yes. When you haven't got a lot of money and you've got so many different priorities, what are the priority you're going to lay out. But I think people are understanding much more that this is a high priority. And in fact, they're spending often more money going to the clinics and using health facilities than they could spend if they actually used latrines, hand washing facilities, get some soap, get some ash, and use anything from grasses to sacking to quite available resources of what's around. So our strategy is not so much to give subsidies or to buy toilets or build toilets. It's really motivating the communities, and that by motivating the communities and the communities clubbing together is going to actually ensure sustainability and therefore usage.
And when you talk about matters sanitation, especially when it comes to latrines, some of them they say it's a personal responsibility. For example, washing of hands. Is it a matter of concern to Plan International, and what are you doing about it to inculcate this kind of culture? Because those simple things add up to bring the issues you are raising.
Absolutely. I mean, access to sanitation facilities, but also access to water is a major concern. Just yesterday, I was out in Kayole in an urban area looking at sort of toilets, and also the village that I was in was complaining that they have only a few days access to water. So it is a huge problem. But we are talking about making sure that water is stored safely. We're always talking, when we're talking about sanitation, about water. So it's not just about digging a hole, it's not just about making sure it's a safe space, it's also about washing hands. If you can't afford soap, then there's ash to be able to rub on your hands to ensure that you're making sure that you've got clean hands. So there are strategies. We're always using those two examples together. But today, particularly, we are looking at the actual toilet, because more investment worldwide has been made in access to clean water than the sanitation end of the scale. The two really come hand in hand if we're going to stamp out disease and if we're going to stop people from openly defecating.
When you talk about the question of Kayole, I'm happy you did mention about it, because I was then going to ask, are we concentrating, say, in rural areas, when in urban areas it's a big problem? We were talking about it yesterday here on GMK, and we were citing a slum in Nairobi, Mukuru slum, where people are waking up very early. They call it morning service, and the question of flying toilets and all those kind of things are still an ISO in urban areas when it comes to matters latrine. Then does it paint a picture of we are yet to reach there in terms of sanitation?
There's a lot to be done. I mean, we're talking about millions of people here who in Kenya still who are openly defecating. Of course, the majority really big problem is in the rural areas, but there are very big challenges obviously in the slum areas in many parts of Nairobi and other cities here in Kenya. So yes, it is a problem. The type of things that we can do as Plan International is, again, we're still actually bringing the training side in with the community so they fully understand. And yesterday I was really pleased walking around and talking to the village, the people that are living in this community, that some, they've clubbed together to build toilets, way too a smaller number for the thousands of people that live in this particular area. But about 50 of the people out of about 2,500 have taken out a loan to actually build toilets themselves as well. We have been able to facilitate access to different areas where they might be able to access small loans with low interest rates and so forth. But for us, it's really about as well empowering the people to really understand that actually it's their rights as well to have, and it's a necessity to have a toilet. So I think some of the people in the urban areas have been demanding themselves from landlords for them to actually build latrines as well. If people are paying rent, they need a latrine as well to go with it. So I think it's a combination. It's very complex. Of course, in urban areas. But I think for Plan International, we're still doing our trainings, we're still doing our what's called the triggering, and it is in different ways. Of course, investment into sanitation, investment into pipelines and so forth does need to be done on a much larger scale. I know certain authorities are looking into this, trying their best, and I think the people themselves as well are now have a demand and are creating that demand. So landlords and others are going to need to provide those services.
When you talk about people, because I was also going to ask you the question of community participation, that this, whatever Plan International does without involving communities, and especially we're talking about county governments as well, and so when you talk about Kitui area where the celebrations will be held, there's a county government there. What are you doing as Plan International to ensure that there's community participation, public participation as it were, and then county governments are also brought on board so that you achieve your targets?
Absolutely, and when I'm talking about the CLTS approach, it is a participatory
and just for the sake
approach.
of our viewers, CLTS
Is
approach,
the
if you can just...
Yes, it is the community-led total sanitation.
Exactly.
And that is something that is completely participatory. All our programs in Plan attempt and are really designed with the people, with the communities in mind. If we just went in, or if anybody just goes in and build toilets, build latrines and facilities, they may be built, they may be used for a little while, but because the people didn't say, we want them there, we really understand what they're for, it's not going to be sustainable. So this approach, the CLTS approach, is very much working with the community, mapping out the communities with the communities to actually say, what resources do you have, for instance? Where's the church? Where's the school? Where's your water points? And where's your latrines? And very often everybody loves because there are none. So it's very much the understanding from the community and then the design, what people can afford, what people want, where they want to place the latrines and so forth. So that is our approach, very much working with the community to ensure the sustainability. And of course, in terms of Plan is working in 8 different counties, as well as here in Nairobi.
In 8 different counties?
Yes, yes.
Do you have, we are 47, do you have intentions of expanding so that you reach the 47 counties?
I don't think we possibly can as one organisation reach 47 counties. I mean, obviously there's a matter of resources, capacity and so forth, but we're not alone. I mean, in terms of working with the government on the open defecation free strategy, we started with this community-based approach in 2007. The government adopted it for Kenya in 2010. So since 2010 there's been a partnership of not only Plan but many other groups working with the government, the county governments to roll out these types of trainings and these types of approaches to achieve an open defecation-free strategy and status. So it is definitely a matter of working with the Ministry of Health, the county governments and the different authorities, because we not only train health officials and volunteers, but also teachers and others to be able to go around into the villages, because Plan's not there in all the areas and shouldn't be. So it's certainly working in partnerships, all types of partnerships, whether it's with other civil society groups, with different government departments, and I think in that way 47 counties will definitely be reached.
Which are the 8 lucky counties that you are working with? Because of the 47, the 8 should be very lucky that you are spreading.
Well, yes. I mean, as I said, we are working in cooperation with many other partners around the country. But for us at the moment, we are in Homa Bay and Bondo and Kisumu. We're in the coast at Kwale and Kilifi, and Tharaka Nithi and Machakos. And it is in Machakos today where they're going to be celebrating another 14 open defecation-free villages, which is pleasing.
Will I be right to say that your choice of these counties has something to do with maybe they are the most affected when it comes to matter of sanitation?
No, it's not. These aren't. I think in Kilifi there were very high statistics. Plan has been in Kenya and operating since 1982. So it's not that we're completely static and will only work in certain areas. But that is where we have our operations currently at the moment. And these areas, and we saw Homer Bay as well, was an area with lack of access to sanitation. So Plan does work for on sanitation issues and water health, but we also have programs in a holistic manner for community development. So there are different, but all our programs are actually trying to improve the lives of children so that they can reach their full potential.
When you talk about Homer Bay, because that piece that you were just watching before we started the interview did paint Homer Bay from another limelight. How's the situation there currently in terms of sanitation?
Sanitation, again, it's, we would like, and everybody else would like, sanitation to be much higher. The coverage in Homer Bay and the coverage in many other counties is still lagging well behind where we should be with the MDGs and achieving targets. But it is, some things are happening. So really we need some investment, we need focus, we need more talk, we need more programs, and I think that Homer Bay, along with some of the other counties, will catch up in terms of making sure there's access to sanitation services. So yes, it's not where we would like it to be. I'm sure many others would like it to be much higher, but also that is an indicative of the country where we're still not there yet.
What's the theme of this year's celebrations?
It's equity and dignity, and I think that is very pertinent, and it's also linked, and something we haven't spoken about during this interview, about the gendered aspect of sanitation, because there is a linkage between gender-based violence and also sanitation, so the dignity and the equity. Very often you will find that the women will have to wait until very late at night and go out in the dark to go and defecate in the open for privacy reasons. And this does leave women particularly open to attacks. So there is a security issue as well as a health issues. So we've been focusing on the health issues, we've been and the under fives in particular, but of course there are many other issues that come with open defecation.
And lastly, a message to Kenyans. I can see my cameraman Moses, you can face that particular camera if I'm not wrong. What would be your message to Kenyans even as we bring this discussion to an end?
I'd definitely be saying, if you haven't already started on the path of getting a toilet, please find out about it. Please club together with your community members and start getting prepared, digging latrines, digging pits, cordoning them off and using them, and putting it as a priority for your family and for your community.
Carol, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
We appreciate. Keep up the good work, and we believe that we should be seeing the fruits of your labor.
Thank you very much.
Very soon.